to be able to take what I do and how I see things back in the Midwest and how I can attribute that to things down here in a foreign landscape. I've never been through this part of the United States, and I was just kind of at home working on all my familiar things, all the things that I do that keeps me ticking, and was extremely excited to come down here and see things in a totally different way. And I'm actually, I think I was mentioning to Scott earlier, like I'm excited to get back home and get in the studio with all of this information and the intake of everything that's been down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of the artists here have probably heard me complain so much that it's hard to get that shadow, or it's hard to get that white or that red on the sandstone, and
Yeah.
all of those different things. And the more that we became comfortable, I think as the week went on, it became a little bit easier for me to process that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the catalyst of excitement for me to come down here, was that. And the list of artists that are on there is just, I don't know, I haven't met anybody that's here in person.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
So it was nice to come down here and
And
interact.
now we're all best friends.
Yep. We all have to exchange
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
No, I mean, I think, like I said, coming down here was exciting. Being here is just amazing, and it's a tremendous honor. But the friendships, the camaraderie, the times that we had, the painting, the 50-mile-an-hour winds that we had this morning,
Yeah.
kind of all of those things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really excited to get back home
Yeah.
and get working.
Yeah, it was exhausting and a little frustrating at first, kind of picking at those colors and, you know, testing things out and fumbling around, and then you kind of get a feel for it. And then for me, it was how to simplify, because it's just there's so much. I mean, in one spot, you could stay there for a month and not paint everything
yeah.
there is to paint.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was kind of like just this whirlwind of calm down. Yes, you want to paint everything, but just choose something and settle into it, and try to like, I don't know, calm that buzz in my head down so I could focus. What made you want to do this?
Well, first of all, you know, whenever I saw the list of artists, I've admired all you guys for so many years, and the only one I've ever met was Kim.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and so I was like, oh man, what an opportunity that would be.
Kim Lordier, by the
Yeah.
way, it's right over
Right
there.
over there. Yeah. And she was the only one I've ever met in person.
Yeah,
And so I was excited to be able to paint together and share ideas and work with the students and just have like an amazing experience in this incredible place. I've never been down here before, so this is a whole new thing for me too.
yeah,
So, so it's been a challenge. It felt like painting boot camp all week.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
So,
yeah. It was exhausting.
oh yeah, it was. You know, I feel like I'm starting to feel a little bit better right whenever we're leaving,
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh yeah, my endurance is starting to kick up.
yeah,
Yeah, but earlier on throughout the week, I was like, oh my god, I'm exhausted at the end of the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when I was planning this, you know, we're all kind of, I don't know, mid-career and got a lot going on and a lot of responsibilities, some with families, some with, I mean, you know, shows and a lot of things that we're juggling. And it you know, a week is great on paper. It's like, yeah, I think we can all get away for that, right? We can rip ourselves away and take that time, but then you get here and you're like, we need a month.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, there's no way we could probably do that where we're all at, but the feeling for me was, I feel so rushed. It's
Yeah.
just too much to paint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like we should have just picked 2 spots and gone back and back and back.
We could
But-
easily have done that.
Yeah, but it's overwhelming. But yeah, I think I'm just really grateful you guys came, that you were willing to take that time off, and I know the sacrifice it is to kind of rip yourself away from your normal life and come here and do this. But I'd love to hear, your demos were so good and so just jam-packed with information. Do you think you could give us the Cliff Notes on that? Just how you approached the landscape, maybe some of the challenges you already kind of talked about the challenges of color or whatever, but maybe from a time standpoint, how you were able to pace yourself, how often you chose to go back and do a second session on the same painting, kind of just your process, what you were trying to achieve. One of the things I should clarify that I'm asking is, I know, like, when I was talking to Travis, his idea is like, I'm here to make a painting. So his approach is very different than mine in that, like, I love to just focus on figuring something out, on learning something, which, maybe I put a little less emphasis on composition or trying to create a work of art. And so that was one of the good things I could sort of integrate from him. And I think Zoey kind of like had a similar mentality. A lot of it was about design. And so I think early on for me, when I started, I separated, when I did stuff from life, I separated just trying to learn from trying to make a painting, because trying to make a painting and compose and color and value and drawing all at the same time was a little overwhelming for me. So I compartmentalized things in my head, and I would paint like parts of a scene, do several studies, and then bring that together in the studio for a larger, more complete studio landscape. And then and I guess I've held on to that. So what are your thoughts when you're doing sketches like this?
Well, first thing I'm looking for is a strong abstraction, and so I'll go around and look for a strong light dark pattern, and something that I can feel like has a good strong center of interest. And so composition is pretty huge for me right off the bat, and in my choices and what I paint. And also kind of factor in how's the light going to change? Am I able to get this thing completed or relatively completed in the amount of time that I have before everything changes?
Yeah.
So then I start thinking about the whole overall color harmony and try to process all that in my head to where I can actually start from a strong foundation after I get my line drawing in. Kind of block out where all my shapes are, and then start putting in my lightest light, darkest dark, and strongest color, and that'll help me kind of gauge and kind of key the painting, and then once I get that overall block in done based on those extremes, I feel like I can really start humming and paint quickly because I've already made those critical decisions that I can relate to now. So
yeah, that sounds a lot like your problem solving, and this is one of the things I used to tell students quite a bit is when you put something down on the canvas, you want to put answers down. You don't want to put questions down. You want to be doing the problem solving in your head, and then say this is what it needs, instead of I wonder if what'll it do if I do this, and what you know what I'm saying. Instead of kind of working the questions and answers out,
right.
You do all of that internally, and then that streamlines the process of just
it's like
execution.
You paint it first in your mind. When you're looking at the scene and going over all like I try to paint everything in my head first. And that can go very quick. And if everything makes sense whenever I'm approaching it that way, I can usually turn out what was in my head. But not all the time. Sometimes I crash and burn.
And sometimes what's in your head isn't as cool as you maybe thought it was.
Right, exactly.
But that's a process. Is that something you came to, or I mean, did you always feel sort of naturally like that's how you thought and processed things, or did you have to go through a lot of clumsiness in your career
Oh, yeah.
before you could like find the clarity to problem solve?
Oh yeah,
Like that.
It was just miles of canvas and,
Yeah.
and hours and hours on the streets in Chicago painting.
Yeah.
Out in the woods and in the mountains painting, and just painting like crazy all the time.
Yeah.
And man, I have so many paintings, as I'm sure all of us do, that we don't show anybody because.
Yeah. Sure.
But it does have some good nuggets in there. It might be a painting that you didn't really care for, but there's some little understandings in there that that got me to the next painting and got me excited about the next painting.
Yeah.
Even though that one didn't work, So
I think that's such an important thing for people to hear because I recently, I've worked with a lot of students over the years, and I think one of the things that I've noticed quite often is a sort of debilitating or maybe a paralyzing fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Or maybe people think, I don't know what to paint. Initially, when you're starting out as a painter, it's sometimes hard to come up with ideas, or you don't know when you go out to the landscape, how do I simplify this? How do I tackle this? There's so many unknowns, and one of the things I've tried to explain to students is that you have to go through the clumsiness. It's really, really important because you could go to, say, like an academy, or you could study under someone and have them say, here's the steps, here's the way you problem solve for that. Mm-hmm. But, and it's a very, streamlined way of learning, but it's not necessarily the way you would describe something. Do you know what I'm saying? If you want to figure out how you're going to paint a tree, if you want to figure out what you think a well-painted rock looks like, you have to make those decisions and stumble over yourself until you find the thing that you think looks good, right? And that becomes then your touch.
Right.
I don't want to say style, because it's not like you're searching for some clever touch or clever style, but you're just trying to figure out what do I think looks good and how do I accomplish that, right? And so your miles of canvas, the important message that I think you're saying, if I could take your really beautiful poetic way of saying it and extend it into something really long and clumsy, is that the joy of the little successes in each piece, even if each piece is maybe overall it sucks, but there's these little triumphs, these little learning points that carry your motivation to the next one and the next one and the next one, and your love of it overcomes your self-loathing, right? Your love of the creative process and the act of painting is more than your frustration and disappointment or whatever. And so if you don't have that, I think find something else to do, because you have to paint. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. I mean that's what I hear when you said that, is your love of it made you go through that process to arrive where you're at now, which is, I think, a good message for especially young artists to hear.
Well, it helps for people to be an optimist too, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To always kind of like, okay, I can do better next time.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to, accomplish something, in this next painting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, optimist, but also realist. Like, okay, here's a few things where I failed, but that's not discouraging enough. Yeah. You're focusing more on the positive outcome, and that you just keep going.
Yeah. What do you think?
The one thing that I think I can add to that that I've realized is that exact feeling of when I was 12, 13 years old learning how to paint. Mm-hmm. The nuances that added up, that started to develop, it gets you that drive to want to do it more and more and more. And then you start getting something that's actually working. And then you get yourself to the point of like submitting for shows and doing paintings for shows and trying to, work your way through all of that. And I would also say that failure and embracing failure in a painting is one of the biggest tools for me. Is I can sit back any night and look at, okay, so like you said, little nuggets are really good,
Yeah.
but this idea needs to be pushed a little bit further, or maybe I cut 2 inches off of both sides and recrop it out. And I think that analysis of constantly learning and yearning to grow and be better than the last painting that you did is like a huge stepping stone. And I think that's very, very important for people in this field.
Yeah.
Is embrace the failures, love like I wiped off 3 paintings in a day, and I just kind of, for me, I kind of chuckled about it, because it's trying to figure out how that shadow is or how that works, and it wasn't working the way that I was seeing it. So then you just start over.
Yeah.
And then there's little paintings that I keep going back to over the time that we were here, and I was like, that did work. How did I handle that?
Yeah.
And as far as like demoing and giving insight into like how we work and our process and those kinds of things is, I think, very beneficial for all of us. Like it was great for me to watch other artists, at or above the level that I'm at, and how they approach it and how they see it and how they feel it.
Right.
And it was just, it's very energizing for me to be in a place where I feel like we all had a little bit of that internal struggle at first, and as the week went on, it started to get better and better, and we were feeling it all.
Yeah. And I think this is an experience I had where I guess I first experienced in 2007, 2008 at the Hudson River Fellowship, which was every maybe like second or third night, there was this big barn they had, and just had a huge open, almost like a dance hall room. And we would all put the studies we'd done over the last couple of days out against the wall. And to be able to like walk around and see just brilliant painting after brilliant painting after brilliant painting, you could kind of like see you could read the mind of the artist through the decisions they made.
Oh yeah.
And you could see how maybe Jacob Collins handled, the light and shadow in a painting that was amazing, or how Ted Minoff painted water and he got that to just, really feel like it was flowing, or Colleen Berry was doing these amazing like pen and ink drawings. And but the cool thing was, like, I felt like I could take what they were doing, kind of understand it, and then go try it, and so I felt like those were month-long things, but in that month it was just this explosion of understanding of different ways to approach different aspects of the landscape. And I felt like that the sort of synergistic quality of the group made everyone better, like dramatically in a short period of time. And I kind of felt that here, like, I mean, I have to go home and test it out, but I felt like just being able to see the different decisions people were making. Zoey is, so much more geometrical, and the way she simplifies is just so like perfect. And then Lynn's use of a color was amazing, and seeing Kim paint in pastels is ridiculous. What she does with it and the speed of it. Seeing Patty had this, she's painting on the back right now. This way of going about it that was so absolutely like outside my wheelhouse, and abstract, and she pulled this thing together, and it was so amazing. Watching Travis work and getting into his mind about how he thinks about painting, and I hadn't really seen Sebastien paint all that much, so it was amazing. It was unbelievable, and I feel like even if I didn't paint at all, I would have come out better from the experience. And it was sort of just, I mean, it's summer camp for adults, in a pretty spectacular place. So do you guys have any other thoughts? I'm drawing a blank right now. Any highlights you want to talk about?
God,
The
there's so
food,
many. There's
the
so
hot tub.
Yeah, there's so many highlights. There's so many.
There's the hot tub for Ben, I know.
That was my highlight.
That was the thing.
That was great.
We're all human.
I know. Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, you were too. I was really excited to see, just because I didn't have any personal experience with you, and your use of color is so unique to each of you, and your drawing skills are impeccable, and a lot of the things I was hearing you guys saying were like, I mean, it's kind of like standard procedure, work back to front, composition, blah blah blah, but foundational artistic elements that I think are pretty globally applicable, that we all kind of have as our foundation. So a lot of that stuff was, repeated day after day after day, which is great for the workshop students, because they got to see, I feel like, and maybe you guys feel like this too, I feel like they got to see how the foundation is great, but how many different unique ways you can jump off of that foundation to go in a completely new direction, in a direction that like Ben's work doesn't look like, you could go in the garage there with all the paintings and immediately like, that's Ben's, that's Scott's, that's Greg's, that's because even though the general principles are the same, the decision making, the touch, the use of color, the way of composing is all so unique.
Yeah, each person's fingerprint. I see people's arrangements of shapes, and I can kind of tell who it is because of the way their compositional decisions.
Yeah,
is their fingerprint.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel lucky. I've already got. My students are pretty mad at me that I was greedy and got a bunch of other people's paintings already. But being able to take that home, I mean, I love everybody's work here. I'd love to have several paintings of everybody's in my, modest collection. But having something that you were there for, that you saw them do, that you kind of did shoulder to shoulder with, to me, that's like a novel of an event, of a moment that not only is a memory for me, but which has sentimental value, but I got to see the whole process of this, so I feel like I can read it a little bit better, and it becomes incredibly useful for me to have those paintings in the studio, not just as an aesthetic appreciation, but as a how-to book on how you accomplished that. And I can just still all your shit. And just,
I know, looking at my friends' works that I have on my studio wall, I see something different in it every day.
Oh, yeah.
And so I find that interesting where, I'll look at one of Elaine Boss's paintings and I'll be like, she got that really nice edge on that tree that I wasn't really paying attention to before. And it's like, that looks like it was done with a little palette knife. And it makes me think about how I can handle my edges a little bit better and stuff like that. So
and it's amazing to be able to live with those paintings as well. I think that's one of the things I find I'm motivated by, is trying to help people that might be excited about painting understand how much it brings to your life when you have original work in your home. It's just something different. Bill Whitaker used to call it, a sort of spirit to the painting that it brought. I don't know what semantics I would use for it, but it's like a living object that, like you said, you get to see something a little different in, but there's a handmade quality to it that I think is, to me, it's like, I don't know, it's like a level of human achievement that I'm just in awe of. I see what you guys do, and I just, for one, I have the solidarity where I know what it takes. I know like how dedicated you have to be that good, and I know how creative you have to be, and how disciplined, and how many hours you have to put into it. So, from that standpoint, I can maybe appreciate it on a different level, but then from the aesthetic standpoint, it's just I don't know. I've just always loved it, and I couldn't explain why. But you got any other highlights?
I mean, honestly, I think from the week is just getting to know everybody and, you know, the idle downtime chit chat at dinner and afterwards, and talking about materials and composition and how the weather was today and what it's going to be like tomorrow and where we're going to go are all part of that internal like process that I was looking to understand from everybody is what gets them going. Like what we walk around, we take photos for a while before we set up. And the highlight for me is just looking at things through my camera in the major locations that we were at and utilizing my vision through my camera to bring possible like larger format landscapes when I get back. And the whole part of it was to be able to study everything that's here.
Yeah.
And to see things in a new way, in a different way. But it was also, it's nice, you know, we all have the way that our shapes, like you were saying, the way that our paintings are composed. And it was really exciting for me to come down here. I think I might have said this already, but to see things here on a similar way that I see them in my native landscape. And how that ties together and how that brings a little painting. And, you know, I find it interesting that Travis said that he's here to make paintings.
Yeah.
And I find that like very, very interesting. As the week went on, there was a lot of us artists here that were taking time to develop strong drawing, and then we were going back to a location again.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, started to think about that process, because for me, plein air painting has always been about just do it quick and grab it.
Yeah.
Before it's gone. And that's kind of been my approach. I did plein air painting extensively from 2005 until 2010. Very little studio work, and that's kind of how it developed for me. And I kind of wanted to do that same approach here. And then it got me thinking about the idea of like developing larger, more complex things over time, over the week. So I'm going home with that thought process, and it's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I think that's an energetic highlight that I came in and going back with a different view on it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that I guess a frustration, which is not, I mean, it's a good problem to have, but one of the frustrations was I want to spend more time just like painting a thing with Scott, and just like let's do a 3 or 4 day painting together. And I want to see everything start to finish, right? And I want to test it. I want to kind of like have time to experiment and apply, and then I want to do the same thing with you, and I want to do the same thing with Cam, and I want to do the same thing everyone, right? Because like I did, I can't even remember what the year was, but I went down to LA and did a month-long portrait with Adrian Gottlieb, because he was using an indirect method that was just unbelievable.
That would be amazing.
And I couldn't I just, we hired a model together, and, just spent all day. We spent a couple of days composing it. We went to this thrift store and got stuff for costume, and started thinking about the idea and what is he doing and why is he doing it, and then we really got into the painting process, color study, indirect, mix up the glazes, like all of it, and to me that's my favorite way to learn, because it helps me kind of get out of myself and experience a deeper sense of someone's mind and motivation. And then you have like 6 hours a day where you're just shooting the shit about everything, from brushes to materials to surfaces to everything. And so I think that's the one thing that I was a little frustrated with here, was just it was so much to digest.
Oh yeah.
And I wish I could have had a little bit more time to Yeah. Spend
we all feel
one-on-one
that
with
way.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all feel that way for sure, because I've learned so much from all you guys. Everyone here is like, I mean, it made me think a hell of a lot more about how I'm going to approach my paintings in the future. It feels like I just got just like a massive dump of information into my brain.
Right.
And so it's going to take me a while to process it.
Yeah.
And even with the students, seeing how they process things and how they're making their decisions, I learn a lot from that as well.
Oh, absolutely. There was really good students here. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
big time.
Some of my previous students came and they're all kind of different levels, but like I'm hoping to go home with some of their pieces. I mean, I don't suffer from false humility when I say I think everyone did better work than me here. I mean, I want to like burn mine and take everyone else's home, because like it's so God, it's just so inspiring. It was endlessly inspiring. Every single day you just walk around another easel and like there's another stunner and there's another stunner, and
It was cool to
you're
see.
like, aren't you one of the workshop people? And they're like, and it's like yeah, you should be teaching. They did these amazing paintings,
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I'm hoping we can do this again.
Yeah.
And maybe we talked a lot about different ideas and different ways to go about it. Maybe little things that we would tweak and do differently. And we'll have to keep that conversation going, because it'd be fun to do this again. I've talked to Sebastien about maybe even renting a chateau in France at some point. And
Yeah, I'm into that.
doing one over there. And we are. I think we're going to plan on having an exhibition next summer. I don't know how that'll look, because some people like Travis, everything he does is from life. So, and I'm pretty sure he just sold all of his things. So he wouldn't necessarily have anything left for a show next year. But for me, like I take these things home and do larger, more more refined studio paintings, and so anyone that is listening to this, just watch out for an exhibition upcoming. I'm not sure where, I'm not sure when, but we'll announce that for sure, because judging from the studies and the excitement and the inspiration that we all got, I think we could put together a pretty stunning show.
Yeah, I think so too.
From the stuff that we did here. So, and hopefully all the studies we did will be sold to each other or traded or whatever. But I mean, I'd love to see what you guys did later in the studio from this, because I know what your refined studio work looks like, and it's insane. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that. So we'll keep in touch about it.
Absolutely.
I feel like everything that we would normally talk about in a podcast, we've already talked about this whole week. So it feels a little redundant to us, but like to the listeners, they weren't here for that. So, maybe we should just end it there. Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciate you guys coming to this. It's been a phenomenal experience for me, and I feel very lucky.
It's been an honor.
That you came.
It's been an honor. Yeah.
It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then watch out in upcoming years, because I hope this is, for me, I'd love to. It's a lot of work to put this on, but it's so worth it. And I would love to spend the rest of my life planning things like this, because I just get so much out of it. So,
Well, thanks so much.
I guess that's
Thank you.
it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
And thanks to everybody else here that's helped put this whole thing on.
Yeah.
They have been amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We're very lucky to have had the place donated, so our stay was free, and thanks to Tori for doing that. I mean, it's just
Special.
beyond generous.
Yeah, very special people.
Yeah, and Debbie and
You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a sacrifice at all. It was such a pleasure to get to be here for the week.
Really
What a
gorgeous to be
treat.
here, and
Yeah.
so lucky to be in the list, on your list.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
well,
was so nice.
yeah.
You did it really well, and the organization was really gorgeous, and everything was so nice.
Well,
so
that's Debbie.
Thank you too. Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Debbie and McCall were pivotal in that
Yeah.
organization. So, yeah. Does one of you want to start? Rock,
Yeah.
paper, scissors?
No, I start. You start?
I can start a little bit.
Okay.
We could go back and forth.
Okay.
Have a conversation.
I will copy you. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure to be here this week. It was so fun to kind of come together with all these artists and get to work together, and it just felt like kind of a refresh for me after I've been kind of struggling through finishing a bunch of giant long-term paintings kind of all summer long.
Yeah.
In preparation for a show which opens next week.
Wow.
So the paintings just arrived in the gallery yesterday,
gosh.
and I get to just be here painting from observation. Just feels so good.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like kind of just coming back to like the basics of painting when you're kind of approaching a new subject. I don't paint landscapes very often, so I was kind of approaching it the way I would approach any painting, but trying to really think about like just getting the composition to work, getting this kind of big strong structure to the painting, and then trying to kind of really match the colors and values that I'm seeing, and kind of building up a kind of juggling that specificity of all these little tiny rocks and crevices.
Yeah.
With kind of keeping the structure of the whole painting was like a real challenge with
Yeah.
the subject matter. These like incredible rocks here have these like striations of value that shift, as the different layers of the geology are shown, and then there's like these vertical shifts of
Yeah.
as the water's coming down them, and then we have the light hitting all the different cracks and crevices as it rakes across.
Yeah.
So it's just incredibly kind of like complicated to
Yeah.
try and get that form to happen within this like bigger structure.
Yeah.
Was just really fun to play with.
Yeah. I was talking to Travis as you were starting your demo this morning, and I was like, I don't think Zoe has painted this subject matter before, but like, could you please look like you're struggling a little bit? It was so like right from the get-go, you came like you'd been painting it for 20 years. And I'm like, it's just like please be human for a second.
It was helpful. I've done so I've only done landscape when I've done these painting residencies. So this is my third painting residency that I've done in the
cool.
last, I guess, decade or something.
Yeah.
And I think in the other ones, I felt more like I was learning and like trying to do these like plein air techniques or something that I was seeing other people doing. And this was the first time where I was just like, I know how to make paintings, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the subject is. I'm approaching these in the exact same way that I would approach painting a giant multi-figure composition or painting a still life.
Yeah.
I'm just like here observing and making a painting, and it felt
Yeah.
just so much more like it was my work. So that
Right,
felt really
right.
exciting to actually feel like I was starting to make the landscape my own a little bit more.
Yeah. When you have, because I think I think you have a very unique personal approach to painting that is so yours. So when you approach something like this, like when you get to see other people, doing the demos or talking about their approaches, you get to see like a Tallman Powers or Ben Bauer, Travis. Yeah, everyone has like a very unique way of approaching the landscape. When you say, I have this way of painting and whatever, how do you extrapolate from maybe some of the thoughts of others and infuse that? Or is that not, or are you really like, this is it, this is me, and I'm going to go for it?
No,
how does that affect you?
I was definitely being affected by the other people here.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful. Like there are people who are just like, who've done so much landscape painting. So it's really helpful to see them working and learn from that.
Yeah.
And some, like Travis was bringing up this issue of like, oh, when you're painting in the shadows, your painting will tend to get really washed out. Just because you're not seeing the color, accurately. And I was kind of looking at my paintings and be like, yep, that's happening to me. And I was kind of going back on a second day and trying to like bring more halftones in there. Because I kept trying to paint in the shadows because it's more comfortable to sit in the shadow for the day.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to hear people's, kind of actual plein air experience.
Yeah.
Coming in there as well.
Yeah.
And I was also kind of inspired by, like, a lot of the Grand Central people are really focused on volume and form, and I've been thinking a lot about more about planes lately.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm seeing other people like really creating these, volumetric kind of sculpting of the mountain. I was like, oh, I want to get that into one of them.
Yeah.
So
I think, I mean, what I love about your work is you rely on shape so well, and because it's crafted so well and it's so structural feeling, I feel like your use of shape, even in its slightly more two-dimensional form, has so much tangible structure to it, because the construct of your shapes is so well crafted. And so, like, I look at yours and I think, please don't like try to turn that in that way, because it just works. I tried it on one painting after having seen you do a couple throughout the week. It was a total disaster. I don't know how you do it. So some sort of wizardry that I love looking at, but could never duplicate. It's amazing.
But there's something that's so helpful about working with a group of people where you're like excited to get out there every morning, and
really,
you're kind of looking at what people are doing.
It's community energy that we have profit every day.
Yeah.
So it's really great to have that.
Yeah. So I'm interested because we went, the day after you got in town, we went painting up by Park City, and then again in Hobble Creek Canyon the next day. And I just loved like seeing you see things for the first time, the yellow of the aspens, and
just a blast.
And then coming here, and it's like an alien landscape.
Exactly. Yeah. So everything was so new for me.
Yeah.
The distance, the size, the spectacular landscapes. It's really just wow. Yeah. Breathtaking for me. Yeah.
And you were kind of the same. You started painting, and I was like, please struggle just a second, for a second, please.
I was so struggling.
Yeah. No, it was so. I mean, I appreciate that, because it just shows how much you know about painting itself, right? The way that you assess a form, or the way that you draw a shape, or observe a vase versus a portrait versus a figure versus a cliff, it all kind of comes down to the same foundational principles. Yeah. And it shows how foundationally sound you are when you can come to something so out of your experience and just nail it right away. It's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been really fun to do for me. Yeah, and it's been a long time that I couldn't be focused during 5 days on landscape painting, and it's so great to do that.
Yeah.
I could feel like a slow progression during the week, and like finding some really good things in my painting, because at the beginning I was pretty stiff and struggling with values and chroma, because the lights and the contrast of the things makes the distance very difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's really new for me, those kind of depths in the landscape with the size of the mountains and the colors of the rocks, and I was struggling also, me too, with the too chromatic colors. So all the comments and other demos that we could assist were very, very helpful also to jump into other places of our painting. So
and there's a different type of distance in the desert. There's you take the humidity out of the air. Because in France and painting in Paris, there's it's so much more humid. And it really changes the colors. And then you come here and those so vibrant powerful. Purples of the shadow and
everything is super strong.
Even in a distance, it's just jumps.
And you do tiny little painting of that. It's just it's crazy to do, but very challenging. And it was so nice to be in front of that. So strong. And I really enjoy. I think I was really enjoyed the experience to be focused 3 hours a day in front on landscape, and just be connected with that nature. All day long was so great. I mean, like, it try to capture the lights, the shapes. It's so nice. I mean, like, we're so lucky. And we were very lucky with the weather.
Oh my gosh! We finished our last session and the wind kicked up. And a storm
like
blew.
15 minutes before my demo was supposed to end, and the gust of wind came, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
That was it. Unbelievable timing.
It was just a
pretty
dream.
perfect.
It was a dream for me as a French man. It was a dream to come here. And we have to stay humble, because in front of all that we were just little painters, but days after day, works after works, struggle after struggle, we get better, and I feel like we need 1 more week. So please, Ryan, make it again. Make it again.
Oh, I'd love to. We talked about maybe renting a chateau in France. There's so many things I'd like to do, but this is, for me, one of my favorite things to do is get together with other painters that I have so much admiration, respect for, and build relationships, and it expands my community, which I'm desperate for. I'm desperate to be able to have people that I can bounce my ideas off of, and especially people that work in a different manner than me, see things in a different manner, have different motivations that can help me kind of filter my own. I feel like I'm still early in my artistic maturation, and so being exposed to different ideas and different ways of thinking is so important for me. And so if I could ask, it sounds like the way that you were approaching it, and maybe you too, you can speak to this, was more like what I heard the first night I had a conversation. We were kind of hanging out by the pool, and I was talking to Travis, and he was talking about how everything for him starts at composition. And he said something really nice, which was, if I'm not interested in it, why would anybody else be? Is that blown open?
Yeah, I might need
All right,
to
I'm
shut
gonna shut that. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I was definitely also thinking about kind of composition from the beginning with them.
That's the key,
yeah.
Because everything is built on that. So the choice you make, even before started painting, I mean, like, if you don't have any joy to do it, there is no joy in the painting. So, and everything is about composition and two-dimensional decision.
Scott was talking about that as well. And I think I vacillate back and forth when I do plein air paintings. When I think what I struggled with the most here was just calming my mind down and being able to simplify. Because I felt rushed to, like, get as many sketches in as possible. So I was looking more at impression and like if I can just get some good color notes, let the drawing go a little bit. Don't worry too much about composition. Just take some really good notes.
The good thing also is that in that landscape there is so many choice of good composition to do. Like, the hardest thing is to choose one of them. But there is so many options. And that was a good painting, so it was really rich.
What I really appreciated about what you guys were doing was it reminded me that I guess I went back to my student mindset, which and I probably shouldn't go over this again because I kind of talked about it with Scott and Ben, but I used to compartmentalize these things when I first started out because it was too overwhelming when I didn't know.
So just focusing on color or drawing or composition or
not trying to make a painting, but just learn something. And I kind of approached this week that way, and then I started seeing what everybody else is doing, and I was like, at this point I have enough experience to be able to balance more. And so if I just took another 15 minutes in the beginning of my process to think a little bit more about composition and the layout of my canvas, then everything that I just did from color and value would just be aesthetically a little bit more nice. And,
are you thinking of doing some larger studio paintings based on these studies?
Absolutely.
Because that also might switch how your brain is, how you're thinking about it if you're taking kind of color notes for larger projects.
But I was intrigued by and humbled by how well you guys balanced. When I look at what you did, they feel like complete works. And I know there may be slightly less refined than some of the stuff that you would do in the studio, but they because of like how you approached them, they feel like that's a frameable, complete work. And I just appreciated that so much. It gave me a little self-loathing because like I noticed it late in the week, and so I feel like when I did switch on my thought about aesthetic and composition, I wish I could go start again. I wish I could like start this week all over again. Maybe we will. We'll have to do this again for sure. But I really appreciate you guys coming. Do you have anything else you want to like highlight or talk about the experience? I guess what my thought was in doing this is I'd just like to try to in some small way convey the magic of what this has been for me, so that if we can set it up again, we can share it with more people. This one we put out, and I'm not brilliant at marketing, but I thought with the name of all the artists coming, just had an unbelievable roster of painters. We'd have a waiting list, but we didn't. And so I just love sharing these experiences with people. And so the more the merrier. Do you guys have any other highlights from the trip, or you're just ready to go home and get going on stuff back in the studio?
Well, I really love the diversity of the different places we've been, landscape, and it sounds that we could stay like months here to studies, and there is so powerful landscape everywhere on the different spots, and we just saw very little things of that, so it's been amazing to change every day and twice a day maybe sometimes of different spots,
different locations.
It was so cool.
And seeing even in the same spot, you could go every different time of day, and it would be different. You'd have something different to paint. And I think that's one of the things I would have loved to have done is like gone back to the same spot 2, 3, 4 times and just keep figuring it out, keep learning, keep pushing. It's just there's so much information to record. But I'm just. Even when I get back, my thoughts when I get back to the studio, I'm overwhelmed. Like, where do I start? I have so many ideas. I'm just flooded with inspiration. And I'm lucky enough to be able to go home with a few paintings as well. I've got
me too.
We've got Sebastien. an original. And
Good trade.
The fun thing for me about collecting stuff like this is I was there, and I got
It's so
to see you
special.
do it,
Yeah.
and
It's so nice to
yeah.
do that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a shared
best.
experience
Yeah.
that. For me, these are the timeline moments. You know, this. What did I do in 2022? I went to Zion with these guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
so-
super nice souvenir for the life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Really great. And
Yeah.
thank you again for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having us. It's
Yeah.
been such
Yeah.
a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so
And
happy
what a treat.
you could come.
I'm overheated, can hardly sleep at night, doing crazy dreaming. You're the reason why, hiding by the baby, losing my mind. Don't try to save me. I feel alive. My world is faster and faster. The tears and the laughter. I'm here for the ride. Yes, yes, I'm an emotional mess. Yes, but you wouldn't want me any less. Yes, 'cause you know how wild it could get to love an emotional mess. I'm in a trance, spinning out of control. Don't know what this dance is, but at least I'm not dancing alone. All kinds of crazy. You heard what I said. I blame you, lover. I'm out of my head. Some days my fear has me frozen. I'm brave and I'm broken. My soul is wide open. Yes, yes, I'm an emotional mess. Yes, but you wouldn't want me any less. Yes, 'cause you know how wild it could get to love an emotional mess. You got me, babe, I'm yours to have. Don't hurt me, my heart's in your hands. You got me, babe, I'm yours to have. Don't hurt me, baby. You got me, babe, I'm yours to have. Don't hurt me, my heart's in your hands. You got me, babe, I'm yours to have. Don't hurt me, baby. Yes, yes, I'm an emotional mess. Yes, but you wouldn't want me any less. Yes, I'm an emotional mess. Yes, 'cause you know how wild it could get. Yes, to love an emotional mess. Yes, you wouldn't want me any less. Yes, 'cause you know how wild it could get to love an emotional mess.
And yeah, what made you want to come? What was your kind of takeaway from it? How did you approach this kind of landscape and try to simplify it down to, of all the million things there are to paint? I'm interested in how you chose your subject matter and you know, what you found beautiful and maybe what you got from other artists and whatever. Whoever wants to start, go for it.
Go ahead. I was so flattered and honored that you invited me to come, Ryan. I can't tell you. I thought this is the perfect thing. I was really feeling like it would be great to be part of a artist community and do something exactly like this, especially since the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
I'd been painting a lot of the same thing over and over, and just feeling like I was exploring these different, you know, ways to do the landscape, but it was not challenging enough. So I thought this would really be something to get me out of my comfort zone. And on top of that, I looked at the lineup of artists and I thought this would be such an amazing experience, and to see how different people interpret the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been amazing, the friendships and sense of community with everybody. It's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, well, I was saying, I can't even remember who I was talking to at this point. You know, hearing everybody explain their process, hearing everybody's demos, and it's fun because the foundations are basically all the same.
Right.
I mean, we're all foundationally sound, and those principles are the same, but how they're applied. One thing I loved about this group was how eclectic it was. It was just such a wide range of approaches and unique talents and unique touches, different ways of describing the exact same thing. And for me, that's how I feel like I learn the most is, you know, painting shoulder to shoulder, looking at the same subject, and then glancing over and saying like, oh, that's a good decision. Like, and I see it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Was it you I was talking to about a workshop we did in 2011 at my school where we brought the Florence Academy, Angel Academy, and Grand Central Academy? Okay, I was talking to somebody, but I just remember looking at the different artists, how we were painting a model for an entire month, and seeing how the decisions they were making. And one of them from the Florence Academy, Jesus Villarreal, he painted this really fair-skinned model, a little bit what I thought was a little bit like sunburned looking, which is not negative. I'm going to get to the point. That sounds like I'm kind of tearing up Jesus' painting, but I was looking at it from a completely different perspective mentally. I was looking for like the real simple. She was a fair-skinned model with a white dress, platinum blonde hair. So I was trying to describe the white. I was looking for the similarities between the décolleté and the white of the dress, and so I was looking for unity. And he was looking at it like, okay, I want the white of the dress to pop off, and so what is how different is the flesh than whatever. And when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, both solutions are correct, whatever correct means, but I see how you saw that, right? And I didn't see it that way, and yet they both totally make sense, and they both worked. And so that's what I felt like I was getting here, was painting the same subjects. And I could look over and be like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of that, which was, you know, fascinating. What about you? How you know, why? Why'd you come?
Why joining? Well, to be honest, I was honored as well, just like Lynn said. And then when I said yes, I'm like, and I saw the lineup of artists that were here, I even posted on Instagram about it. I felt like a fish out of water because my background is much different than the collective. And but the opportunity for me for the education was amazing. And the fact that I was able to join Lynn, who she and I have been dear friends from since the beginning of my career. Right. So it just kind of seemed like a win-win.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, you and I had a great connection with you when we met a long time ago at Trinchera. And
Yeah, that was what, 2005, 2006, somewhere around
5
there.
or 6, yeah. And we'd seen each other periodically.
Yeah.
But I knew from the get-go that it was going to be a safe and a wonderful experience, knowing you.
Yeah.
Or, from over the years, I knew it was going to be educational, so I felt safe from coming in from a very different perspective from the majority of the demonstrating artists, and kind of the focus of what the workshop part of it was about.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I really wanted to be careful about was curating personalities. It was, we decided to have all the meals in the houses, so
That's what you said.
that we could make sure we really had all that time to hang out. We weren't all going out to different restaurants, and I mean there were times where we could break out and go back to a place and paint again, and follow that more personal inspiration. But for the most part, everybody was really together.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the really nice things was there was only a couple people I hadn't met before. Zoey, Ben, and I had talked to Scott on the phone. But others like you, I'd seen you, I think we met at the Portrait Society, and but I hadn't spent a lot of time painting together, I don't think, in the past. But I just, like you, I knew most of the people, and was already friends with most of the people, and I just was really confident that we were all going to get along, because a lot of you hadn't met a lot of the other artists, right? Travis, Sebastien, or Ben.
No, I hadn't met them. I think I had seen Patricia before at the Portrait Society, but so it was amazing to be introduced to these different folks, and I think also the actual painting time together was very valuable.
Absolutely.
But also the off time, having dinner and getting our gear together. So it was really wonderful.
Yeah, so fun. When you were approaching the landscape here, I think both of you have done some subjects that had red rock and desert scenes and whatever. So this isn't like completely out of left field for you, but still, approaching an experience like this where you have a limited amount of time, and every day was planned, and you, different locations and different light on the subjects, and how did you deal with that? And from a subject matter standpoint, did you come at it from more of a composition, like I want to make like really good paintings here? Did you come at it more from like, I'd just like to get some studies that I can go home and do larger works from? Or what was your mindset coming in?
So for me, when I work outdoors, I'm gathering information, and all that on my photographs I bring back into the studio, and then we'll create something from all of that material. Yeah, I find that very valuable, and so I treated this week as a similar situation. The first couple days, I felt like a fish out of water, because I hadn't painted red rock since like 2015, when I was out here for the Maynard Dixon Country exhibition or show, and so this magnificent park and environment is very daunting and complicated, right? Geographically, the color, but I knew through my past experience from painting from life outdoors that it would take a couple of days to settle in. Then you start finding your rhythm and your voice, and that stayed true to my experience of coming to a new place again. And by the last several days, I've felt really good about the information that I was gathering versus just trying to find my palette and find the shapes and so it was a struggle. And then I think, like everybody that has been painting here or this week, found that you're just trying to find the right mixtures and the right all of that, and then by the end of the week you're like, okay, now I'm ready to start painting this place.
Yeah,
Right? I
right.
mean, and it would actually take, at least 100 paintings to be able to be comfortable
Sure.
here, but it's that incremental increase in knowledge and understanding where the light, where the sun, how is it traveling through the canyon, and such.
Yeah, that reminds me, like, I didn't know Kate Starling lived down here.
Yeah.
And so fortunately you did. And so she joined us too, which was like just a huge added bonus. But you
Yeah.
can see, we were thumbing through her book the other night.
She lives
and
here. She knows this country.
there's an intimacy about the place that comes through in her work that it was fun to see her sit down and paint with us and just bang it out.
Yeah.
And oh my God, she's so good. And so thank you for for reaching out to her, because it was another level of
I'm glad you were okay with that, because
Oh, yeah.
she's
I mean-
not only a fantastic and amazing painter, she is a beautiful human being.
oh my gosh, yeah.
And she is generous to.
Yeah.
She's an amazing woman.
She's so sweet, and I'm so impressed with her as a person and with her work.
Absolutely.
And
So she would have fit in. So.
she
Yeah.
totally fit in.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with what you guys did every day. It was just inspiring.
Well,
It was really
likewise, I
inspiring.
still think you should have placed your demo not on that first day, so we all could have watched you paint.
Yeah. I had in mind what I wanted to do from the get-go, and then circumstance was everybody started.
Yeah.
Everybody was already set up in the shade.
It was because it was
And-
hot. It was
yeah.
it was hot, and everybody got piled up right in those
Right
two
in
little
that-
shade.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I abandoned and went off like 100 yards
Yeah,
down and
in the full sun.
in the full sun, and did a demo painting for myself. And it was
Wait,
really
it turned
peaceful.
out
It's
beautiful.
it's a beautiful piece.
Thanks. It was like the most peaceful demo I've ever done. I didn't have to say a word. Yeah, I felt bad about that all week, because I thought, should I do? But there was no time for
Well, I
me to
told,
like do a makeup.
I told
thing.
Debbie, I said, listen, I'll give up my demo spot for Ryan if he wanted to come in,
Oh, nobody wants to.
I
see
said that
me.
to you too. I told you that. I said, I'll give up my spot.
No. People wanted
Yeah.
to see you do your thing. You did a great one. You did a couple on that one, in that one spot, right?
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of us were sort of regurgitating similar ideas, similar approaches. Back to front, look at the values, big masses, general to specific, how to lay things in, but. The nice thing about having you here is you're a pastel artist, and so that's like it's a medium that is so unique, and it doesn't react. It's not the same. There's a
a
uniqueness
lot of
to
big
it.
differences to
Yeah.
that, where incrementally the value shifts and the temperature shifts within each
Yeah.
color stick that we have is such a big jump. I think one of the biggest things that I knew coming into this, I knew my work would be very separate, not just the medium, but because I don't have the subtlety that you guys have with oil to have those very soft, gentle shifts. And so...
But I think the way you handle it is, you have this really beautiful way of layering to establish the subtlety. So I hear you say that, and I think whatever you're doing with those pastel sticks is wizardry. So I think you really balance the more vibrant colors and the way that you layer them, drag that across the surface. I think you have way more subtlety than you think you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. I was kind of hoping to do what we did at the Trinchera Ranch and like
Switch
switch
again.
easels.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. But next time.
Next time it will be.
Yeah.
And Lynn's color, when every time I would walk up to her easel, I would be just blown away by her color and her observation. Oh,
And you traded Travis the one I wanted. I watched
was
watched
a
you do that,
beautiful
and
piece.
my gosh, yeah, it's just so.
I think that this helped me learn things about myself.
Yeah,
Just hearing the other artists' feedback to my work. One of the things I'm trying to do is to notice what I pay attention to, what inspires me,
yeah,
and I know it's color and light and atmosphere. And I had a number of artists remark about the same thing about the color in my paintings, and it just never occurred to me that
yeah,
that was a thing people might notice. But it taught me, you know what, this is really where my interests are.
Yeah.
I'm kind of between. I totally appreciate the academic way of working, and I also totally appreciate Impressionism, and I feel like I've kind of been riding that line between those two things for a long time. But I think the color part is really important for me.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you say that it didn't occur to you, which to me says, this is my natural reaction. This is how I see it,
Yeah.
and this is what I find beautiful.
Yeah.
And I always think that when you have that natural reaction and you allow yourself the freedom to kind of follow that inspiration, that's the magic of the painting, right? And so the fact that we're all dazzled by it is another reminder to be confident and just make the decisions that are that make sense to you, and own it, and obviously make it as good as you can. And but I think that's the confidence some people don't have, and I think it's really important to hear that, because when you do naturally react to something, there's going to be an audience. There will absolutely be an audience.
I think Zoe's demonstration today was very poignant for me, because in listening to her story about her choices of how she dived into the working with Juliet and getting that foundation, and then she kind of shifted gears and went down to Laguna to study, and just that drive to make her way in with her voice, to me was very, very inspiring.
Yeah.
To watch the demo and to listen to her speak throughout was incredible. I will remember, the conversation that she had with all of us.
Yeah.
It was
When I was talking to her earlier, she said, like, I know how to paint. I know how to make a painting. So I approached this like I approach everything else. And I was like, yeah, it's so frustrating though, because like it didn't look like she stumbled at all. And I just want to, like, her and Sebastien and Travis, just like, you've never painted this stuff and you just come in and just knock it out of the park. Just have one stinker, one where where it's obvious you're kind of figuring it out, and they just is everyone, even like I mean, we had some non-demoing artists staying with us.
Absolutely.
Brian Johnson and McCall Johnson, not related, Sherry King and
who's the
Debbie
beautiful
Williams.
redhead with the gorgeous hair?
Oh shoot!
we kept
I'm
taking
forgetting.
pictures of her.
Yeah.
Well, she had this stunning piece going when we were on the Mesa. I was just these.
Yeah, I mean,
Very talented.
yeah, it was really amazing. Everybody was just killing it.
Stacy had some beautiful
Oh, yeah.
work, and
Stacy, Christina,
yeah.
it was really amazing to see all of that.
I didn't get to see much of what Sherry or Debbie were doing because they were always having to get back here to.
Yeah, they were amazing.
They were.
Debbie had a beautiful painting going.
Oh, I'm glad
They
you.
were the.
They
were the engine that drove this thing.
Were. Thank you to
Yeah.
Debbie and Sherry for
Yeah.
for this. Of course, Tori and you
Yeah.
and McCall.
Right.
But those two girls, women,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just kept. They were the glue here.
Yeah, they made it. They just made it so smooth.
Yeah.
Everything was so
Yeah.
great. Yeah, well, thank you for so much for coming and being a part of this. It's you both added a lot to this experience,
Thank
and
you,
I'm
Ryan.
very
Thank
grateful.
you. I'm honored.
Yeah, and I still haven't really gone over to the house. We're having a little exhibition right now of what's been done, but I haven't been able to really soak it in. I haven't seen Scott's paintings
Oh,
yet.
yeah,
I
some
haven't.
beautiful pieces.
I feel like I'm gonna miss out on getting one of them,
Well-
but it'll be worth it because I really want to record our feelings about this in the moment. I think that will be. I hope our passion comes through, and we can do this again and share it with more people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much
Thank
for doing
you.
this.
Thank you,
Very
Ryan.
much.
Yeah, I'm sad it's over.
We are too.
We still have some evening left.
We got a little evening left.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you guys
and
haven't been in the hot tub
I,
yet.
well, you know,
So
not so sure.
a few more.
Did you pack that bathing
I
suit?
think I may have forgotten
I
it.
don't even know if it's a bathing suit night.
Oh,
No, it's not going to be like that. Okay. All right.
all right. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my drink's down here.
Thoughts on that, and then maybe just some highlights of the week. And whoever wants to jump in with that can start.
Well, so I grew up down in this area, just an hour away in St. George, and some of my best friends own the lodge right here, the Cable Mountain Lodge. Shout out, check it out if anyone's around.
Yeah.
But they, so all my high school years I spent doing these hikes and climbing, and I wasn't really painting when I lived here. But when I did go and become an artist, and I kind of thought that this was the direction my life would take, that I would be
because I grew up hiking and, you know, backpacking, and I thought I would throw, just once I was an artist, I'd throw my easel in there and I'd always be landscape painting. But my career kind of took a different direction, and I don't landscape much other than to put something in my background of my, you know, something behind my figures.
Right.
And, you know, so I'll go to Central Park. Yeah, I live in New York, and I need a tree, so I'll find a tree or a rock and paint it and put it in my painting. And I wanted to come here with all these amazing painters to kind of watch and observe and just think about doing a painting solely for the love of doing the composition and not knowing exactly how to approach that. It's been so inspiring watching other people do it.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, to my detriment, I feel like I should have been painting more, but I was just watching. Like, like every demo that I watched was just so inspiring. Like
That
Patty
is really
here.
hard. It's like hard. You want to watch people paint, but you also want to paint.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I did mine the first night, everybody had set up, and they had set up like 100 yards from the place that I chose to paint. And they didn't know that because I was down like directing people to come up, you know, to the top of the mesa. And we should mention that Zion Canyon Mesa allowed us to paint up there, the art organization, and they were really generous in allowing us because it had such insanely amazing views. But so I said to everybody, yeah, I'll be down there if you want. But everybody had already started something. And so I feel like I had the easiest demo of the week because I didn't have to say anything or do anything. I just painted by myself. But my thought was, yeah, you could watch me, but why would you? Look at this place. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, and then I saw everybody else doing their demos, and they're going in depth. You
It's
didn't
just
stop
great to
talking. You just was like throwing information out there, and it made me think, crap, I really screwed this up. But
I think everybody demos really differently. And
Yeah.
you know, I've watched so many artists demo and teach, and some people just demo and they don't talk at all.
Yeah.
It becomes this very religious, monastic experience. And it is interesting. I think it's most interesting to see how people start, right?
Yeah.
Within like the first 30, 45 minutes, you can see like what their approach is, how they mixed up their, you know, like from Zoey, like with the pre-mixed big piles of paint and thick and like laying these big shapes, right?
Yeah.
Or Travis, you know, starting with the drawing and building up these subtle tonal, like everybody just kind of focuses on something different. And it's
Yeah.
really, I wanted to come because I wanted to be able to see these really fantastic painters and watch them paint, you know, and see how they approach stuff. But I also am not, you know, my primary subject is figure and portrait. It's ironically, I've actually been doing a lot of plein air work lately.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's a place to just grow and experiment. Like I don't think of myself as a landscape painter.
Yeah.
So I feel like a beginner. And I don't have a lot of stake in it, and I just want to do it so that I can have fun or just learn something. And so when I came, I grew up in the Midwest, I live in the Northeast, so this area is like another planet. It's totally foreign. So I really just tried to enjoy being in a very unusual environment. And also I was working on paper, kind of a little bit experimentally, and trying to push myself instead of to just do what I already know how to do. How can I just use this experience and this time and this opportunity to do something I don't know how to do and just experiment like that? It was kind of a challenge to me yesterday. I was like, you made 3 or 4 paintings that are kind of similar. Can you make like some really different compositions? And then it's great to be able to see other people's compositions or process and be like, well, what if I did it a little more like that?
Right. Yeah, I was saying earlier with somebody else, I feel like I got that at the Hudson River School when we would all show what we were doing, and you could kind of pick like how he handled this and how she handled that, and then go try it the next day, and it was really an explosion of knowledge. I feel like for everybody, and then like there's so many people who I know they don't typically do these subject matters, and then they're just like come and be like, yeah, well here's what it is, and it's really good. And I just was thinking like, can you stumble around a little bit like I'm stumbling around? Jesus, you have to stop showing off. And I remember seeing you paint I can't remember what day it was, but I was like, okay, like there was this almost sort of like controlled chaos with a watercolory feel to it, and versus like you started with a more careful drawing, and both of those were so like different, and then the way that you just pulled them together and organized this thing and the way it turned out, it just there's unbelievable.
When you
to
work
me.
outside, you know you only have a little short window of time, and it forces you to prioritize. Like, what do I care about?
Yeah.
What do I want? Do I care about the composition?
Yeah.
You know, is it process in terms of like, you know, the materials?
Right.
Is it like, what do I want to focus on in this painting? Like, what's important and what do you emotionally care about, right?
Yeah.
Like in my demo, I was like, yeah, this whole area, I don't care about those bushes. Like, I don't, you know, like, and I think it teaches you to focus and to even just
Prioritize.
notice your own reaction. Like what, you know, like for me, like I noticed that in the landscape, I actually really respond to like distant vistas where there's a lot of like blue and a lot of space and a lot of air. But then I'm seeing other people focusing on like Zoe's work is very much like, it's like a monolith, right? And so everybody kind of distills, so there's some essential component.
It was crazy to me how much Zoe's paintings look like Zoe's work.
Right.
You know, but she's painting this mountain, and it's like, oh, that, like, I see the mountain, but it looks exactly like her multi-figural paintings. Like the same texture, the same fill, everything about it.
But you're looking at the same mountain, you're like, yeah, that's the mountain. The way you described it is the mountain, but it looks so different than Greg's or Scott's, or like the decisions that everybody was making were so uniquely theirs, and I think that's what's different than the Hudson River School, because we were all at that point kind of coming out of school and transitioning into maybe being professional artists and taking our education and trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it, and that it was really educational to be around all those minds. But this was different for me. This was like everybody's coming pretty artistically mature, you know. So the decisions they were making were so. They owned them. Lynn's use of color, and then like Kim had, Kim with her pastels, the medium itself requires a slightly different approach, but you were using the paper, and that requires its own sort of handling, and to see how everybody was doing that from an artistic motivation was really interesting, because I think at the Hudson River School we were more like student minded, like I just want to learn this, I need to figure this out and maybe later make a painting of something, but I felt at that point like I was just in it to figure stuff out.
I think it's really valuable to spend time painting with other sort of developed, mature painters, and we do absorb things from each other, and I find myself sort of then in my studio or doing my work a little like, well, maybe I'll kind of do this a little more in a sort of Travisy kind of way, or in a like sort of a Greg kind of way, right? And I paint in the summer with some painters out in the Northeast in Pennsylvania, and we have kind of taught each other, like how to paint and how to work. And then when you're working with other developed professional artists, it's a really rich conversation.
Lynn was saying. She didn't say this. She said it like right after we stopped recording, but I thought it was great, so I'll say it. She said it felt like a safe space where you could experiment and you could try things out, and you weren't going to bring it back, to the environment and put it in front of people and have them scoff at it. I think everybody was really encouraging and appreciative and really gracious with, I think the gratitude of just being a part of it, being able to like see the different approaches and appreciate that eclectic collection of different ways of painting the same thing. And for me, that when I was planning this, that was kind of the main thing I wanted. I didn't want all academically trained painters. I didn't want strictly landscape painters. I wanted like, I mean, it started with friends. It started with like you guys who like I've known for so long. And so I knew like the environment we were creating at the homes was going to be awesome. But I wasn't concerned at all about whether people had a focus on landscape or not. You know, I just wanted people that I knew had, you know, great artistic motivations, that I, you know, love and respect as people. And it was amazing. I got exactly what I expected and way more than I expected.
Yeah.
I feel like I really value just nurturing my friendships with my artist friends. You know, I've known you, Greg, for a really long time, and we got to go to China together, and now we got to do this together. And that is also really meaningful because we all work alone in our studios. And yes, we can like stay connected in some ways. But I think knowing that there's other people and really spending time with them in their process, then you're back alone in your own studio feeling a little bit like you're kind of lost in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And to have those relationships and those connections, I think we all need that in a really big way.
Yeah. Sorry.
One other thing you made me think about was painting with everyone. Also, you are reminded that like for everyone, you know, you see Zoey Frank and Greg and Travis, and they make amazing work, and then you spend time with them and you realize that for everyone it's a process, it's a struggle. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not going to work, right? And it's a certain mindset. And I heard over and over again from the students, right, the participants, the workshop participants, that they were like, it was so great to see that, right? That you also like, you know, I know how to paint, but I can also like an hour into a plein air session be like, oh, I'm really in trouble. I have to know what I'm doing. This is going badly. Right? What do I do? How do you work your way through it? And I think seeing over and over other people like get themselves into jams, work their way through it, you know, how do you, because we all have to,
those moments of self-doubt that never leave. As Scott was, you know, talking about that in terms of like just how the love overcomes that, you know, you just keep going and painting and making a ton of paintings because your little successes and the joy of doing it completely overwhelms any self-doubt you might have. But it doesn't mean that the self-doubt goes away. I mean, I had so much of it here, just coming back and going to the garage where we're keeping all our paintings and just being like, oh my gosh, I have some students who studied with me and they were doing better work than me. And I was just like, what is happening? This is unbelievable. It's so amazing. I mean, it's good for students to hear that. It's good for them to see it because and all the students here were.
That's the artistic process.
Right?
It just goes on and on. You know, it doesn't. You don't stop. If you stop trying to learn and grow and struggle as an artist, you're like, you're not going to make interesting work.
It's just nice to know that like people that are 20 years in still struggle with that, and it creates a solidarity among artists where you feel like connected a little bit more. Like I think, you know, when you're 20 years in, you don't look back at the people that are 2 years in and think there's this big separation. But when you're 2 years in and you see somebody who's 20 years in, you do think there's that big separation. But I think when you can meet them and spend time with them, you can feel a little bit more like we're peers, you know, where maybe they were up on a pedestal. Now you feel like maybe I could be there too. Maybe you're friends. And I think that's what's so great about this group, even with the workshop, you know, people who signed up for this. Everybody was so cool. Everybody had great personalities added to the environment. They did such good work. And it was a pleasure. I remember when I was sending emails out, and I sent tons all the time to you guys, but I would always do I would send them blind the PCC, whatever, because I don't want to assume that people want their information shared. And then of course at the end, everybody's like getting everybody's information and give me your phone number. What's your email? Let's stay in touch, which is exactly what I thought would happen. And it did. It was just so great. I mean, Travis gave a little goodbye at the end, and I'm like,
I was a little flick lamp too.
Yeah.
Craig, what was your favorite thing to paint here?
Just the towering cliffs, and just I love the brushwork. I loved watching how other people solve the problems.
Those big sculptural masses
Yeah.
are super appealing, and then the light is just absolutely.
Yeah, and the light just heating them up. My idea was I wanted to for my demo I wanted to find a tree or a rock that I was comfortable with, but I could not resist these monoliths.
Yeah.
And it's just and beautiful colors, which are very similar to flesh. I was using my same flesh palette.
Me too.
Paint
Yeah.
this landscape.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. I just learned so much. Like from you, you start, Patty, you start with this chromatic chaos. And I'm like, where is this going? How is this? How are you going to pull it? I mean, it's intense and it's beautiful, but it's like, oh no, how is she going to finish this? And then you would find maybe 2 spots to just really resolve.
Yep.
And it just ties the chaos all together, and it's like 2 notes harmonizing, or
Right.
something. It goes from chaos to this beautiful chord.
Yep.
The more I'm doing these, I also if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And so as I'm, with this approach, I want those colors, right? Making these swirls of paint, this drippy mess, this chaos, the brushwork, that's just really fun for me.
Yeah.
And hopefully I want to coax a really nice painting out of it, but sometimes you're it's kind of a little of an unwieldy, chaotic mess. But I'm trying but that feels so good too. It feels so fun.
And it's you're being able to control that process. And when I first started, I remember painting outdoors, and public would come by, and then when somebody comes by and you just barely started and it looks like trash, you're like, oh, don't. But I would get in my own head about oh, this is what it looks like. But I would lose what it was going to look like. I would lose the focus on where I was going. And so I got really mixed up and ended up just creating a mess. I was pissed off and wipe it out. And I learned slowly over time, okay, yeah, it's ugly now. Go ahead, walk by, judge me. It doesn't matter. But I know where it's going. And if I could stay focused there, and that's what it looked like you were doing, like you were never out of control. Although there was one time you were painting when Sebastien was doing his demo, and I was standing on the opposite side. You were facing me across the bridge, and I remember you taking your. I remember because the fast motion caught my attention, and you just flipped all this stuff on the
I did.
canvas.
I just decided I was gonna kind of spatter paint. I flipped.
But your
away.
reaction was sort of oh shit. And I was like, she'll be all right. She'll pull it out.
I wondered
a really big mess.
I wondered what had happened, because it was your usual start, and then I came over and it was a Jackson Pollock.
Yeah, I kind of.
And then it turned out to be a gorgeous painting.
Yeah.
But when I got up that morning, I was thinking I'd made 3 or 4 sketches, and I was like, okay, you figured out you could do that, and they were kind of consistent. And when I woke up, I was like, okay, today I'm gonna just make some paintings. I'm gonna be more experimental.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make things that are I'm just gonna embrace the unknown, and if I make a really bad painting, that's fine.
Yeah.
You were so embarrassed about using that palette knife, but it turns out you're like, oh, I'm so kitsch.
I know, I felt like
But
a bad mall painter. I'm making this palette knife painting,
But it was so good. It turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
These monolithic cliffs call for palette knife work. I mean, it's if you're gonna use a palette knife, this is the place to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. It's just, and when I saw you do that, I was like, that's the kind of confidence I want. Because, and it speaks to your strength of foundation too, because even when you do something that might be, you know, a little bit more experimental, you're really never out of control, because you can always come back to like, you know how to draw, you know about value, you know about color, and so whatever's going on, you have the foundation to organize it at any moment. And so for me, just that one moment was like, damn, that girl's painting. She's going for it.
A mess. I think also I'm like increasingly, I've talked to a couple of people about this. I have this new concept about like, we judge our work constantly. Did I draw it right? Did I draw it wrong? Are the values right? Are the values wrong? Is it a good painting? Is it a bad painting? And none of that is helpful to me, you know. It like really over time just kind of like locks me up.
Yeah.
And so especially in a space like this, working with other people, working in a different place, like I'm trying to be really detached from any kind of idea of like, will it be successful or not? Like all of those words, those judgment words. And to just really, it's like, if you showed up, you know, you put your paints out, you like did your work, that's
you
great.
win.
You win.
Yeah.
And then you like are surrounded by these other artists who you can learn from and like think about be influenced by the way they are working and thinking about, and reminding you that there's other ways to think than the way you think.
Yeah.
And you win.
Yeah, I'm for me, it's been a long time. Studying academically, seeing how effective that was, becoming just a massive champion for this way of studying, and then starting a school, and all of my attention being on this approach to teaching. I think my artistic maturity has maybe lagged a little bit behind, because my focus has been so much on you know, helping people build foundations, and so for me, this kind of experience, and I think, you know, I was in New York in January. We did a podcast there with both of you, and that experience with you and Haesoon and Peter Drake and like all Max Ginsberg and all the people I got to hang out with was so expanding for me. And I had that same month closed the school, and so I was just starting to like have a lot of time by myself. And that trip was really pivotal for me, because I feel like it was the very beginning of my artistic maturation. Like that was puberty for me, you know. And I came home, and I've had months now to just think about a little bit more just about my art and what I want it to look like, and you know, really kind of, I don't know, divorcing to some degree from that constant academic mentality. And so seeing everybody here and has been great. It's just a jump start to that journey for me. It's just like adrenaline for that direction of trying to explore and find myself a little bit more individualistically. So yeah, I'm just so grateful you guys were able to find the time and come. You both added so much to the experience for me. It's great to like build on our friendships, and
It's been really, really precious time. Really precious time.
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Dinners, painting, everything. It was
Everything.
a good,
It was
great
awesome.
experience. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you again, and that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's been incredible.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Ramalama ding dong. We're all done.
All right.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Zoe talked about that in her demo. The like her journey, her artistic journey.